In the last tutorial, we covered creating verse slides for a sermon. Now we're going to cover creating the other types of sermon slides. Verse slides are probably the most common slides you'll be creating, and they also take the most time, which is why we spent all of the last tutorial covering those. But there are some other types of sermon slides you'll be asked to make, and we'll cover those quickly here. First, let's cover how to create a sermon point slide. We'll go to the bottom right corner of the editor window and click on the arrow by the plus button, navigate to our template, and then let's choose the thumbnail that says sermon point. And so now I can copy and paste the sermon point into this slide. I'm just going to go to the email the speaker sent me with all of their slides, highlight this text here, copy it, and then when I paste it into ProPresenter, remember I'm going to use this option of paste and match style, which comes up if I right click and then look at my options here. Again, that paste and match shortcut is pretty important. It just takes any text we paste and puts it directly into ProPresenter in the format that we need from the template. We'll pretty much be using that shortcut anytime we're copying and pasting text into ProPresenter, so it's a pretty good shortcut to keep in mind. And you can shrink the size of the sermon point if it needs to be adjusted, but don't go below 40 points for the text on a sermon point slide. Second, let's work on inserting a quote the speaker has given us. I'll go to my template once again, down here on the bottom left, clicking the arrow next to that plus button, and we'll find the template file for a quote. Once I have a new slide with the proper template, I'll switch back to the email my speaker sent me with all the slides, copying the quote, and when I return to ProPresenter, of course, using paste and match style, I'll then add a new line with the author of the quote and any citation the speaker provided. And as you can see here, I'm going to have the actual quote aligned to the left, and then the speaker's name and any citation aligned to the right. Like a verse slide, sometimes our quotes will not fit on one slide. You'll see in this example a much larger quote. The same rules for a verse slide apply. The default size for the text on a quote slide is 40 points, and if I need to shrink the text to make room, I will not go any lower than 34 points. And as you can see with this example, even though we try and shrink the text to 34 points, the quote is still not small enough for one slide. When that happens, we can cut the quote in half, pasting the second part on a new slide. Then we'll go back to our previous slide and use the word continued in parentheses with an ellipse to indicate the quote continues onto the next slide. Once I've added the word continued, I'm going to push it all the way to the right of the text box. And remember, we're going to shrink that to size 30 so the audience knows it's not part of the quote. So again, you can see on both quotes, they're aligned to the left, and then the author's name and any citation information is aligned to the right. Third, let's focus on how to create a list of points that appear one right after the other. Here I have pasted my content into ProPresenter. Now I'm going to use the Enter or Return key to put each point the speaker has given me on a new line. Once I have each point on a new line, I'm also going to add a new line to the very top of my content. So once all of my points are in a list, with a new point on each line and an extra blank line at the top of the text box, I'm going to click and select the text box with my bulleted list. And you can see that when I do that, the wireframe of the text box comes up. With the text box selected, I'll navigate to the right side of my editor and click on this tab that is my text properties. From here on the bottom, I can choose a text reveal option, and we'll choose the text reveal option bulleted list. Now notice that when I choose bulleted list from my text reveal option, the thumbnail for my slide now has a few circles beneath it, one for each of the line breaks I inserted earlier. Let's find out what those mean. If I click the editor button at the top menu bar to go back to display mode, I can test out my bulleted list. Now let's watch these circles and the display screen as I click on the bulleted list slide. As I click on the slide with the bullet points, each click on the slide fills in one of these green circles. As each circle is filled in, the points appear line by line. What separates one bullet point from another is the line breaks that we added with the return key. And if you need to, feel free to watch this part again until you understand how the text reveal function works. It can be a little tricky the first time around, but it is very helpful for presenting slides, especially when the speaker wants points to appear at different intervals but on the same slide. Fourth, let's focus on how to present an image on a slide. As you can see in this example email of sermon slides the speaker has sent us, they are requesting the attached picture at this point in the talk. Once I've downloaded the image the speaker emailed the slides team, I'm going to go into my editor and create a blank sermon slide. Once I have a blank slide, I'll click on the Insert Image icon above the slide. I'm now presented with a file box, and I'll just navigate to wherever I saved that image the speaker sent me. Once I find that image, I'll click on it and choose Select. The image is now imported into ProPresenter and on the slide. And feel free to stretch the image as much as appropriate so it is fully on the slide but not blurry. Now I'm going to add a black background to my slide. Remember, this is one of the default backgrounds we imported, and it can be found in the Slides folder on Dropbox under ProPresenter Essentials. The black background helps clearly contrast the picture when presented. One final step is that whenever I create an image slide, I'll put a blank slide right after the image with the default sermon background. This is important because we changed the background on the image slide, so we need to add a blank slide right away to return to the default background for the rest of the presentation. Let's briefly talk about how to highlight an item on a slide. Again, sometimes speakers will ask us to highlight certain phrases or words in a verse. This is pretty obvious, but we would simply drag the mouse over the text we'd want to highlight. We would then find the color picker on the right-hand side of the editor, and I'm going to go over there, look under the Text Properties tab, and it's this colored square next to the bold icon box. Most of the time it'll probably be colored white since that's what our text default is. We're going to click that square and choose the color for the highlighted text. And normally I like to use a bright yellow. It contrasts very well from the text. And this step will probably look a tad different if you're on a Mac or a PC, but the same principle applies. We're just going to find a bright yellow color. And that has been our tutorial on how to create sermon slides. Thanks so much for hanging in there. Now you should have a know-how of how to create just about any combination of slides the speaker would ask for. You can feel free to watch this video as much as needed or email any questions to the slide team leader. As always, thanks so much for watching and giving your time and talents to serve New Life Church. Be sure to check the video description box below for more tutorial videos.